The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the Dastardly Desk Clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
In the time it takes us to say, we're using Folgers Instant Coffee, seamlessly blended with water and ice. A splash of whatever kind of milk is your thing. And gotta get that caramel drizzle. All to make a toasty, roasty, caramel iced coffee. You could be enjoying it. Every damn sip of it. Damn right. It's Folgers Instant.
I've got a lot of grandbabies, like a lot. And when it comes to finding a gift for each of them, it could add up. But this year, while I was making my way through Walmart, I realized I don't have to spend a lot to get the gifts they'll love.
An OPI mini mani set! I'm gonna do so much nail art. Oh yeah! A Lego set! Might own a Walla water bottle!
Ooh, and that's just half of them.
Shop great gifts they're sure to love for $25 and under at Walmart.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Do you have a point of sale system you can trust, or is it a real POS? You need Shopify for retail. From accepting payments to managing inventory, Shopify POS has everything you need to sell in person. Go to shopify.com/system, all lowercase, to take your retail business to the next level today. That's shopify.com/system.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Kelly Green Hour as we are here to get you set for Week 9. Wow, I can't believe we're already in Week 9. Week 9 of the National Football League, where your Philadelphia Eagles are set to do battle with former Super Bowl winning head coach Doug Pederson and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'm your host, LJ Harrell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, I know it's about to be a wild time for you in the next 24 hours or so, but how you doing, my friend?
Yeah. I mean, the baby's likely coming at any time, so I mean, hopefully I don't have to just suddenly leave this stage and exit the show, but we'll see how things go. But beyond that, it's life as usual, and I can't believe we're in Week 9. That's crazy to me that waited all this time, and it feels like we got to Week 9 in like days. Feels like it's just been days.
The football season flies by faster than any other sports season, and obviously it has the least amount of games. 82 in the NHL and the NBA, 162 in the MLB. And while the NFL does feel like it's a 365-day, sport, we only get 17 games, and they fly by quick. Before we jump into the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHero54, and follow Eagles Pin Pull Network wherever on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, any of the wherever you listen to podcasts at Eagles Pin Pull, and we are very appreciative of them allowing us to use this platform to bring our stupidity sometimes to the airwaves. Mine more than Connor's, to be honest with you. We will. Obviously, we're going to follow the same pattern that we do. We're going to talk about the game, offense, defense, give our unheralded player of the weeks for last week in the NFL at the end before we give our offensive and defensive players to watch, a key or two to the game, and our prediction. I'm leading Connor right now by 2 games. I'm 4-3 on picking Eagles games. Connor's 2-5. So we'll see how what we have in store. I already have mine written down, so Connor and nobody else can say I'm cheating if we have the same score, or if I wanted to go different from Connor. All right, Connor. The Jacksonville Jaguars are a struggling team right now. It seems like we always say that about Jacksonville. Doug Pederson might be a loss or 2 away from getting fired. Wouldn't it be something if a loss to the Eagles gets him fired? It feels like when it comes to Doug Pederson, his downfall is his loyalty to assistant coaches. Let's be real. The reason why he got let go in Philadelphia back in 2009, at the end of the 2019 season, Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman wanted him to make a change with the assistant coaches, and he said no, and they let him go. The reason why, Nick Sirianni's still here after last year, he allowed, he went with the plan to get rid of the assistant coaches that he had and let Howie or let Nick pick his new assistant coaches, but we all know who really picked them. Now, Doug is hitching his wagon to Press Taylor once again. I think Press Taylor's the offensive coordinator, if I'm not mistaken, of Jacksonville, even though Doug calls the plays. That offense doesn't really seem to be working right now. They have, when healthy, they do have good weapons. Trevor Lawrence is the number 1 overall pick. Probably a little overrated if you ask some people. Tank Bigsby and Trevor Etienne should be able to make a decent backfield, but Etienne is often injured and can't get on the field apparently, and Bigsby is, while he's injured right now, he's actually been decent for them. Christian Kirk out for the year, if I'm not mistaken. Brian Thomas Jr., who's looking like a really good rookie, he's banged up. We don't know if he's going to play. Gabe Davis, who they got in free agency from the Buffalo Bills, he's also banged up. Their offensive line's not very good, and that's just the offensive side of the ball, Connor. The Eagles defense should be able to wreak havoc, even though they're missing Darius Slay this week. But obviously they got to play the game because the game's not played on paper.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely on paper that this Jacksonville Jaguars team is not good. They've been struggling all season. The couple of victories came against the New England Patriots and the Indianapolis Colts in the only game that they really were able to keep up in a shootout, 37-34. Their defense, their passing defense is terrible, just one of the worst in the NFL. Their offense is kind of in the middle of the pack, but the middle of the pack doesn't do you, it doesn't do you a whole lot of justice when you're not able to put up more than about 20 points max a game. In their 2 wins, they put up over 30, and then they had a game there recently against the Packers. They put up 27, but otherwise they've struggled to put points on the board, and it's going to become even more difficult with these injuries. I mean, even if Tank Bigsby's a go, I mean, he's dealing with an ankle injury. Those are never easy to deal with from a running back standpoint. Gabe Davis feels like even when he was in Buffalo, he was always banged up. He felt like he was struggling to stay healthy. He's dealing with his shoulder injury. Travis Etienne just on his way back from a hamstring injury. And then you got Brian Thomas, who's dealing with something in his chest that reportedly was going to put him out for 2 to 3 weeks. And he was back-to-back days as a limited practice participant. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with Brian Thomas. But he definitely won't be 100%. I mean, he's got some going on in his chest. And if you were expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks, it's probably not something you really should be playing with. And you're leaving yourself very vulnerable doing that. And I mean, I know, we're without Darius Slay and Dallas Goedert. We don't really have to worry about Dallas Goedert because Grant Calcaterra stepped in pretty admirably these last 3 weeks. I think, with Dallas Goedert and his injury history, Darius Slay and his age, you want those guys healthy for the backstretch. If we're winning games and things are working, there's no reason to rush those two out there. And especially Darius Slay in this situation, the injured game could not have happened against a better team because he's going to be able to miss it against a team that Rodgers should be able to stand his own ground against their second, third, fourth, fifth wide receiver. Maybe not even the second is going to be out there. So, it'll be interesting to watch, but and seeing Isaiah Rodgers get that first start since 2022 is going to be interesting to see. I mean, we know that he was projected to win the battle, and then then Rodgers was hurt. Kenyon Mitchell stole the job and hasn't looked back. So it'll be interesting to see what he's able to do and if he's able to, make sure Slay can get a couple weeks off and get back to 100%. But injuries are definitely a tale of the tape, especially for the Jacksonville Jaguars. When you're a middle of the pack team and you lose some of your top pieces, it only means bad things.
Yeah, and speaking of Isaiah Rodgers, he said his goal this week is to win NFC Defensive Player of the Week. So we'll see. When he got in there last week, he did an admirable job, tipping that ball to CJGJ so that he could come up with the interception. So we'll see how he does out there. Obviously, we have Keely Ringo who can also play. This is actually might be good for the Eagles, kind of see what they have behind Darius Slay. You probably don't have to force him back. And then, we'll see what happens beyond this year. Isaiah Rodgers, he's going to be a free agent after the year. He wants to try to make himself some money after being out for an entire year. So he's definitely got something to play for. But sticking with the Jacksonville Jaguars offense, Jalen Carter and Bryce Huff, hopefully, Milton Williams, Amaro Jomos, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, they can get pressure on they can get, sorry, I saw the Party on Broad. What's up? Podcast question. If they can get pressure on Trevor Lawrence, we'll discuss that question in a couple minutes. Then, they could probably force some turnovers. Again, the Eagles only have four turnovers the entire year. So hopefully they'll be able to come out and do that. Biggest question of the game, biggest question coming into the game is this a trap game? Because you know who the Eagles have next 2 weeks. You have the Dallas Cowboys, and then you have the Washington Commanders. Huge division matchups. So if you think about it, if there's any way for the Jacksonville Jaguars to come in to Philadelphia and pull off the upset, it's the Eagles looking past them. Now, I don't think the Eagles are a good enough team to look past anybody, but they could be reading their press clippings, a 3-game winning streak, and looking beyond the lowly Jaguars, looking at the two division opponents. Man, that could be a recipe for disaster if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Yeah, we've seen this before with the Eagles where they have a stretch of games coming up and then it's get bridged between this game that seemingly means nothing against a team that's really not that good, that on paper you should win. You come in riding high, you're playing really well. You definitely cannot look past this Jacksonville Jaguars team, especially Doug Pederson. Doug Pederson wants to win this game. Oh, yeah. If he could have all his weapons available at his disposal, he would be throwing everything at the Philadelphia Eagles to try to get that W against him, especially in the Linc. But unfortunately, he's lost a lot of pieces. And you would think that this would be the game. There's a chance that they're going to be without, Ezra Cleveland. It looks like he's going to play. I think he logged a limited one on Friday. So it looks like he's going to play. Although there's a lot of guys who were limited all week and they all ended up questionable versus usually sometimes if you're missing practices and get a limited one in, you're more of a doubtful. It feels like the Jaguars work a different way and say everyone's questionable just so they don't tip their cap too much. But
I have a dumb question. Which one's worse, questionable or doubtful? I never get that.
Doubtful. Doubtful to me is the one that puts you game time decision. That's the T. Higgins of the world. Situation.
I always get confused by that. I don't know why.
I don't know how they gauge it. Most teams, if you're a limited participant, like if you didn't practice all week and then you're a limited participant on the final day, usually you're marked doubtful. But I guess desperate times call for desperate measures, and they're kind of gonna play these. They'll
probably see
guys.
How they feel flying.
Exactly. They're gonna see how it goes once they get off the flight. Maybe take the warm up, get some of that good painkillers into you before, and see if you can go for it. But if Ezra Cleveland's out, Brandon Sheriff's not bad. Mitch Morris isn't bad, but we've seen it. Like if you're missing a guard or something, it makes the interior offensive line's job just that much harder. So hopefully not. We're usually lucky. We're blessed to have great next man's up in the locker room when we need them. But that's not necessarily the case in Jacksonville from an offensive line standpoint. So it definitely will be, it's going to be really interesting. I hope they're not looking past it. They shouldn't look past it, especially, when you got a guy like, and I don't know if he's going to play, but Ronald Darby's coming back. You got Doug Pederson. These are the games
lot
that
of the
those
coaching
people
staff
play their best. For some reason, they just play their best because they want to prove something to the team that moved on from them. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You mentioned how there's a lot of Philadelphia connections and especially on the coaching staff of Jacksonville. So Party on Broad Podcast has a couple questions. The bigger disappearing act. Bryce Huff
or Joel Embiid. I mean, well, first of all, if you didn't think that this was going to start to be the plan with Joel Embiid, I mean, every year it's gotten worse. Like you couldn't have expected this to be a better season for that standpoint.
We don't like to talk about losers here, so we'll leave this to a very quick, 30-second tangent here. But the easy answer is Mbum, because Bryce Huff was an undrafted free agent. Joel Mbum has never gotten past the second round, got a $190 million extension, and is going to play 20 games this year and still not get past the second round. Probably not get out of the first round. So that's an easy question. The biggest.
And we know why Bryce Huff got the money. He has the intangibles that Howie just loves. He wanted Howie wanted to get ahead of the curve, and we're gonna see. There's still some more season for Bryce Huff, but I mean, we are week 9 now. At what point do we just?
At least he's playing, unlike some bum.
At least he's playing. Exactly. This is true. This is true.
Playing. All right. I so hope that this will be a Will Shipley game where the Eagles put up a huge lead in the first half and Shipley gets a good amount of touches. He showed some burst on that. Now it was called back on a penalty, but he had that touchdown run against Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken, last week. So he does show burst. I would love to see him get carries. I would love to see him become the second back behind Barkley because I'm tired of seeing Kenny Gainwell. The Eagles have an infatuation with Kenny Gainwell for some reason, but I agree. I would love to see Will Shipley get some carries. As great as Saquon Barkley has been, you kind of want to try to preserve him as much as possible going into, the latter portions of the year and hopefully into the playoffs. He's second in the league in rushing, only behind Derrick Henry, and everybody was talking about how you don't ever pay running backs, you don't give them big contracts. Well, the two big free agents at running back are first and second in the league in rushing right now. So.
Goes to show, there's been a lot of talk because I think it was Brian Baldinger also posted something that the top 5 Russian teams all are 3+ games above 500. So it's is Russian back? Are people so focused on stopping the pass that they've completely weakened their rush defense?
I think the Ravens are 5-3, but they're still over 500. So the point still stands.
Yeah, I wish I saw through, but it was something to do with the best yards per attempt and the records for Russian and so I agree. The only thing that sucks about Will Shipley is that when he gets touches, it's the backups coming in, so he doesn't look as good as he could. I would love to see him get a few touches behind the number 1 offensive line because I think we'd see a different Will Shipley than the Will Shipley we get in the fourth quarter of a blowout game.
Speaking of that, was it weird last week when the Eagles pulled out some of their starting offensive line and Jalen Hurts was still in the game? I noticed that they
that was
took
risky.
Out,
it was
very risky. I was shocked at that, and I'm mad at myself for not bringing it up on Monday. But that's something that I get it. Maybe you want them to work with a different center just in case. But yeesh, somebody gets pissed off and hits him and he gets hit in the wrong spot. Do you trust Kenny Pickett to take the Eagles to the playoffs and beyond? I don't.
No, I agree. I don't think that was a smart move at all. And you know what? If you want to see him take snaps from somebody else or see what he does behind a different offensive line, that's what practice is for. Don't put him in that situation unnecessarily, especially when you're blowing a team out. That's when the incidents happen. So you definitely don't want that.
What has been
the biggest surprise of the Eagles season?
Who has been the biggest surprise of the Eagles season? The Kobe Dean.
I mean, Zach Bond's one of the best linebackers in the NFL. Now, I know that everybody was kind of having a prelude to the season by saying Zach Bond is going to be the Andrew Van Ginkel of last year. But, I mean, that was just everyone's dream because, it always feels like there's always that one linebacker who just bursts onto the scene in a Vic Fangio defense. It wasn't like something we were sitting there, and if it didn't happen, it was like, oh man, we put all our, we kind of did put all our marbles in on Bond and Dean, because the rest of the marbles were in on White, and he got let go. But I mean, I think I'd go Bond over Dean. I mean, I think so many people had this expectation that Dean had to have this type of season, or he was going to end up being a bust. So, I mean, I was expecting that Dean had to come out, show out. So the biggest surprise for me would have been like if Dean got injured again. Oh, wow. That's not even a big surprise. Anything with Dean, I wasn't really a big surprise to me.
I also think that having 2 rookies in the secondary and be impactful, that's kind of like, how often does that happen? It happened for the Chiefs, I think, with McDuffie back in when they won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, having 2 rookies, one starting in the slot, and slot is not an easy position to play, the other starting on the outside, and Quinyon Mitchell is one. He is up there for Defensive Rookie of the Year. Like you talk about Jared Verse with the Rams. I really can't think of anybody, but it has to be like Jared Verse and Quinyon Mitchell have to be the top 2 in consideration for Defensive Rookie of the Year. If I'm missing somebody, please let me know. But he has been outstanding so far, and it's not like Darius Slay always travels with the number 1 receiver, because they play sides, so he could be going up against the number 1 receiver at times. And then what DeJean was able to do against Jamar Chase in certain situations last week, and the tackling has been so much better since after the bye when they inserted Cooper DeJean into the starting lineup. And obviously coming from Iowa, the one thing Iowa is known for is kind of like the fundamentals. Their offense is usually crappy, but their defense is usually good. Fundamentals, tackling, and he shows burst, he shows athleticism, and he knows the fundamentals of tackling. He doesn't get caught out of position. What did he do on that 4th down play last week? He ran right through Jamar Chase instead of breaking down.
Yeah, Cooper DeJean chasing down Jamar Chase on that TFL will be one of the top plays of the season.
Probably.
Definitely at this point will be. The unfortunate thing with Quinyon Mitchell, he's not getting any of the count-in stats, which is what a lot of the people who vote for Offensive and Defensive Rookie of the Year look at. So they're not looking at this guy's completely shutting down like top end players. Like people have been posting on Twitter him in his one-on-one matchups over the last 6 weeks against the top receiver on each of the teams. And I don't think any of them have gotten more than 25 yards against him, which is not something you generally see from a rookie, cornerback. Usually they'll trip up here and there and give up a big gain or a big touchdown or a big game from a top wide receiver, but he really hasn't yet at all over the last, I think most people are showing right back to the Bucs game and stuff, even maybe even as far back as the Saints game. And it's just unfortunate, because if he had 3 or 4 interceptions, he'd be leading for sure. But because he has none of those counting stats. He's going to get one soon.
Absolutely, maybe this week. He's bound to get one. This
is going to be the 4th straight week we talk about. He's going to get it. Our big prediction is he's going to get that pick this week. It's time.
Yeah, hopefully. Party on Broad also says, can we also put to bed that Jalen Hurts can't run motion under center or can't hit the middle of the field? He did all that last week. And I do think, look, I never said that Hurts can't play from under center, but maybe he just wasn't comfortable with it, and it took some practice, and that's what they did. There's this talk, Brian Baldringer talked about how a lot of the players went to the coaching staff there because they weren't happy with the offense. And obviously no names were put around, but we heard what Lane Johnson said after the Tampa game, I think, when he said that the offense was constipated. Pretty funny term. But
I think even John Clark said today that Lane Johnson had admitted that he was one of a few players that went up during the bye week to Nick Sirianni and mentioned having to run the ball more and needing to run the ball more and early on. So, and he mentioned how he respected that Nick Sirianni took into consideration what the players out on the field were actually saying and feeling.
Yeah, a lot of coaches, they implement their offense and make the players fit into it. I like that this coaching staff, at least from what we've seen from the outside, they are putting their they're putting their players in the best position to succeed, fitting the offense with what they have. Chip Kelly was like, we're doing it this way. We're not going to do it any other way. And if you don't like it, you're gone. So he got rid of Deshaun for different reasons, but they didn't bring Macklin back. They didn't bring Shady back. Tore up what was a generational offense. Mike Vick, Shady McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, and Jeremy Maclin. Just not holding on to those guys and just letting them go kind of killed his career as a coach here in Philly. But the one thing, like, Nick Sirianni is very open and very willing to change what needs to be changed. And that's the one thing I like. There's a reason why we talk about this time and time again. The players love Nick Sirianni. There's a reason. We talk about player coaches, but he's behind the scene. He's obvious, and I say this all the time, he's obviously nervous in front of the media. It's not how he wants to speak, but behind the scenes when he's with his players, Paris Campbell re-signed with the Eagles to the practice squad for a reason. It was because of Nick Sirianni, because Sirianni called him up. Like, how many coaches are going to do that? Not many are probably going to do that. So he deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, there was a lot of talk. He didn't allow that talk to get him when everybody thought he was going to be fired at the bye or after the bye or whatever. But the team obviously rallied around him, and now they're playing their best football, and hopefully going to continue to play their best football going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the evolution, and I think here, it's a Party on Broad says, I agree, Hurts is most comfortable throwing these 50-50 balls. Hopefully this is the start of Jalen Hurts evolving as a passer. This has been the biggest point of contention with Jalen Hurts is his evolution. His evolution as a passer was necessary to take the next step. And we knew it wasn't going to happen overnight. We knew that it might take time, the right offense, the right structure. There was a whole lot of things at play that had to happen for Jalen Hurts to start taking that next step. Hopefully this is him taking that next step. I don't want to overreact. But then, of course, there's, the Emmanuel Ochos of the world who are now his whole thing last week was put to rest. So here he moved on to, it's all about A.J. Brown. If it wasn't for A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts isn't. And I know that there's a big thing going around now is why is C.J. Stroud not catching flack for last night and his performance last night when Jalen Hurts was in a similar situation? And, that whole idea of the media just picks and chooses who they want, and they've loved to pick on Jalen Hurts. They pick these specific people. Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, while should not be in the same vein and conversation, are constantly back-to-back topics of conversation on ESPN. It is wild. These are the two that are at the forefront of just being picked on by the media, and guys like CJ Stroud and others who had similar situations, missing your left guard, like Kenyon Green, who hasn't been that good, having a banged-up offensive line. We've had a banged-up offensive line, missing his top two weapons. We've missed our top two weapons, and everyone looked at Jalen Hurts and said, it's all about the weapons for Jalen Hurts. Without the weapons, he's nothing. It's so one-dimensional in the media. It's wild. And hopefully this evolution is what's going to get people talking about Jalen Hurts in a more proper and appropriate manner than how they have been talking about him.
Yeah, I agree. And, Hurts was drafted in the second round, and Stroud was drafted second overall. Like, there are different expectations for guys, and you would think that all the flack that Hurts get, obviously if you're missing an integral part of the offense, you're probably going to struggle. That shouldn't be all on the quarterback. And I think, the quarterback obviously gets all the credit when you win and all the blame when you lose. And like that big question is should a win-loss record be a quarterback record, if that makes sense. And obviously it takes more than just a quarterback to win games. Granted, Tom Brady kind of showed that. Bill Belichick,
but Tom Brady and Patrick Mahomes are those are the true generational guys. And some people have stepped up in the media and said, if we're constantly going to compare the next man up, the number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5 quarterback in your rankings to Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady, they're never going to live up to it. Because these are those players that come around once in a generation. And there's a reason that they're always held to that standard and everyone behind them is compared to them. If we had a different way of comparing, if you compare equally, Patrick Mahomes is on his own level. So then the next level, let's look at Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and talk about them as against each other versus, Patrick Mahomes and the almighty, top of the chain. He is the way he is for a reason, even if, some people think that he gets a lot of help from the refs and the league and so on and so forth. at the end of the day, he has done some things without the help of the refs in the league to win games for his team. So it's the standards on quarterbacking is interesting and seems to never evolve in the media sphere.
They're always going to be the main topic of conversation.
Ryan Doherty says people throw bust around way too quickly. I think he's going back to Nakobe Dean discussion there. You know what? In Philadelphia, absolutely. They are willing to call a butt. And we have to remember I think the expectation with Nakobe Dean was he was projected to be a first round pick, and people were like, he's a first round pick, and he dropped to the third round, and people still have first round aspirations on this guy. There's a reason he fell. And I think that people need to understand that when they're thinking about this guy needing the time to develop. So in Philadelphia, for sure, I think it is throughout the NFL, but in Philadelphia even more, the word bust gets thrown out so quickly. I get it. The NFL seasons are short. Bryce Huff, we gave him a big contract. He is still only 7 games into a brand new defense, brand new culture, got out of one of the worst cultures in the NFL, brand new, whole atmosphere altogether. 8 games and still trying to put it together doesn't seem that long, but when you get given that much money or you're a first round pick, the expectation is that you plug, you play, you move right into your new home and succeed. So, and I definitely agree with you, Ryan. People throw busts around way too quickly, especially in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, but if you think about it, somebody who got labeled a bust too, Jalen Reagor, he has cemented himself as a good, he's been in the league for 10 years, close to 10 years now.
He always gets a job.
Yeah, he has a job. He always gets it. Now he's with the Chargers now and had that catch and lost the ball into the end zone a couple weeks ago. But he was a very integral part to the Eagles Super Bowl win in 2017. So it takes some players longer to kind of get themselves established, unfortunately, and they may not be able to get established with the team that drafted them. It's an unfortunate thing, but I mean, I guess when the money is being thrown around the way it's being thrown around, a lot of fans sit back behind, computer screens and on their phone behind 260 characters or whatever it is on Twitter and thinks they can talk a big game, but nobody would say anything to an athlete in front of their face. Let's be honest. It would never happen.
Imani Bentley, go Birds.
Thanks
yes, sir, go Birds. And party on broad. People go to extremes way too often in sports talk. I've seen a ton of people calling Jordan Davis and D. Slay cooked. I fully disagree. They're not great, but the criticism is unfair. On the Jordan Davis front, he's a big dude. He's a bull rusher. He's a run stopper. I think that people I get it. As a first round pick, we probably were expecting him to be, pass rusher, get after the quarterback, kind of like what we see with Jalen Carter and what we've been getting out of Jalen Carter. But you just have to understand within the scheme, which the media will never take the time to look at the scheme, look at their part in that overall picture for its individual team. They just think defensive tackle, Aaron Donald. It's just quick, the reaction
Dexter
that
Lawrence
you...
right now.
Yeah, exactly. Dexter Lawrence. They just think of who's the best one. You're not like him. You're bust. It's just not fair to
They also
look at
take into
players in that
account
vein.
where he was drafted. They traded up for him to get ahead of Baltimore, thinking Baltimore wanted him. I think they took him 13th overall, if I'm not mistaken, 13th or 14th. A lot of people kind of just take circumstances into account. And position of need. Did they really need a defensive tackle when they took Jordan Davis, when they had a need at safety and Kyle Hamilton was there? So it is tough because they take everything into account without knowing what was going on behind the scenes in the war room. What were the priorities for the Eagles at the time? So that's probably a thing that people need to take into account. Unfortunately, they don't, because they think they think they know better than the powers to be that are in charge. And we all have our own. We'll sit here and think, we think that we think the Phillies should sign Juan Soto. Well, of course you think. Everybody, 30 teams in the MLB want to sign Juan Soto. And when he goes to sign somewhere else, you'll get mad at your team because they didn't make an effort to sign him. We always talk about how whenever there's a name available, and it's always the Eagles are interested in this person. Well, are they for real? Or is that just somebody throwing something up against the wall and hoping it sticks. It's kind of the
But
situation.
even then, we know how he loves to pick up the phone and make the phone call, because you never know when you might be getting the right deal on the right player. Like the Baltimore Ravens going after like Deontay Johnson, that deal. Like
I did not see that one coming.
Yeah, like some of these deals, and I think personally it was just a way to block other wide receiver needy teams from getting a fairly good wide receiver in Deontay Johnson. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's been said before, you'd be crazy not to pick up the phone. Like, Howie would be crazy not to pick up the phone and say, what's your asking price? What do you think about this? And try and make a deal or try and sign a player. You'd be crazy not to. It just doesn't make sense. He's doing his job. And when those reports come out, seeing him constantly out there and involved shows he's really good at his job. Seeing, how frustrating must it be to be a Dallas Cowboys fan and constantly Jerry Jones is saying, we're not changing. We're not going for anyone. This is our team. We're going with this team. Like, I love to see that how he's always out there involved and trying to get players and picking up the phone. You want that from your executive leaders in football.
I mean, it would be organizational malpractice not to do due diligence. And that's exactly what Howie does. Party on Broad says, keep the picks, let the kids grow. How about, would you be willing? Trade deadline's on Tuesday. We're 4 days away. I mean, the Eagles, just speaking from the Eagles side, an Eagles win puts them at 6-2. They have need. Do they have needs? Every team has needs. Like, what would you be willing? It's not going to happen. I don't think these guys are getting traded at all. But like Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, Von Miller, like the Eagles have a need at pass rusher. Are you willing to trade a first-round pick or multiple first-round picks for somebody like Myles Garrett or Max Crosby? Or do you think that's too rich, even though they are really good players, still kind of in the prime of their careers? They're still young-ish. They're 27, 28-ish. Or as, Party on Broad says, keep the picks, let the kids grow, see if Bryce Huff can continue to progress, get better, see if Josh Sweat, who's probably in the last year here, see if he can go out with a bang. See if Nolan Smith continues to get better. See if Brandon Graham finishes his farewell tour, potentially. See if he finishes it off strong. Or do you go get that? We're going to get that legit guy that can be a force. Somebody that when you're planning to play the Eagles, you're like, we need to stop 95. We need to stop 98. I think that's their two numbers. Is that what you're doing? Or are you going to sit back, hold on to the picks, and obviously take an edge rusher in the first round and then go from there?
I think Howie's got a pretty rich value on firsts. I don't think that he'd be giving up multiple firsts, even for a guy like Max Crosby or Myles Garrett. I just don't think that that's in Howie's nature. We never really see him make that bombshell move. Like, even like, AJ Brown, I get like it was a first round pick, but there was swaps of picks along the way with that deal. He's just not the guy that he's gonna make a move like that, I don't think. I mean, I don't think those guys are on the market either. So I'd be more realistically looking at like a Zadarius Smith and stuff. And if the ask is a high end day 3 pick, so the odds are they want a 4th rounder for him, would you be willing to make one of those moves? Then you have to ask, does Zadarius Smith or does one of those, older defensive edges who's maybe past their prime really keep move the needle with Bryce Huff and Josh Sweat? Or are you just splitting and flexing some time between other guys and hoping that fresh legs get the pressure? I think the Eagles are going to stand pretty pat. Like, you might see Howie make one of those small little moves, and they like kind of like last year and the year prior, where he's just making those moves, sending a day 3 pick and getting like a guy like what was it last year, Logan Ryan or whatever, just getting this random piece that doesn't really do that we think will move the needle, but then doesn't move the needle at all, like we thought at the safety position. So, and Party on Broad says, would you be willing to trade Becton or Steen?
Keep the death. I mean, Becton is only here on a 1-year deal, and the way he's been playing, somebody might be willing to give him money to play guard if he's willing to go elsewhere to play guard. He didn't want to do that with the Jets, but he did it here with Stoutland. And both Becton and Steen also have injury issues, so you keep them both and go from there.
I agree. And I think that Becton, from a compensatory standpoint, will probably get you more than what somebody's going to pay on deadline day. But I mean, now you are like, how bad is the injury to Kenyon Green, who hasn't even been that good for the Texans? Would they be willing to entertain trying to pick up a guard and throw out, because they know, this might be their time, one of their seasons. The window may not be all that huge because, they got CJ Stroud on that rookie deal. Would they be willing to take that shot? I mean, I wouldn't be moving Becton for anything less than probably like a third rounder, because there's a chance if he continues to play really well through the season, he could end up a third rounder from a compensatory pick standpoint. So why would you take anything less, especially like you said, when both of these guys, Steen lost a job because of injury, Becton's on the fringes of losing a job because of injury. So why would you move on from one of them when they both have struggled with injuries?
Exactly. Ryan says, Walker or no one, complete the UGA Infinity Gauntlet. Are we talking about Trayvon Walker for the Jaguars? Don't let him leave town this week. Just leave him here. Let Dougie P do some business with Howie Roseman. And sure, why not? I don't know if there's a current Walker. I know that Georgia currently has a good edge rusher. I just don't remember who it is. But yeah, I mean, if they could be in sell mode. If they lose this week, that puts them at what, 2-7?
2-6.
2-6. So you never know. Anything is possible.
Puts them at 2-7. You're right.
Yeah. Anything, and as both Ryan and Party on Broad say, great O-line plays everything. You keep the depth, as we've said. Anything can happen. And who obviously Becton he didn't want to play guard with the Jets, but coming to Philly playing for Jeff Stoutland, he's been really good at guard for somebody who's never played it. It is funny though. We talk about how Jalen doesn't like to throw over the middle. Becton hasn't started the last couple of weeks, and Jalen has thrown over the middle a little more. Is that because
playing under center, thrown over the middle?
Is that Becton's 8 feet tall and he just can't see over him? It'll be interesting to see if they continue that when Becton gets back into the starting lineup. Party on Broad said,
how excited is LJ to watch a heavy dose of Parker Washington? We all know that why LJ loves his Penn State players.
I can't wait for Ohio State to kick their ass tomorrow, by the way, as a side note. I hate Penn State. Only way Penn State can get into the college football playoff is for it to expand. And they played one good team this year, and that's Ohio State, and they're going to get their asses kicked to them. And then, Trayvon Walker, he was part of the championship team and drafted. How bad do you think Jacksonville feels, or how stupid do you think they feel taking Trayvon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson in that draft?
The family that vacations together stays together. At least that was the plan. Except now the Dastardly Desk Clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want your connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
If the new Chicken Big Mac at McDonald's looks like a Big Mac, has 3 buns and sauce like a Big Mac, but has 2 chicken patties, then it's not a Big Mac.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
All aboard! Welcome to the Friskies Express. Please keep all paws and tails inside the train. To the right, you'll see Crunch Canyon. To your left is Filet Falls. Now you're passing Party Mix Peak. Today's Delicioso tour is almost over. But don't worry. With Friskies, there's always more to explore. Check out Friskies.com to explore more.
This holiday season, design your dreams and discover the wide range of iconic Ralph Lauren fragrances to enchant your friends and family. Featuring the bold Polo 67 or the energizing Polo Red. Discover a wide selection of Ralph Lauren fragrances gift sets and look out for a complimentary duffel bag at your local Macy's or on Macys.com. The fragrance destination. Purchase needed. See details in stores. Select doors only while stock lasts.
I mean, you have to feel like that. And when that pick was made, the reaction was like, holy, like, what are you doing? and it clearly shows that this one they were just wrong on. And sometimes, you swing, you miss, but sometimes you just got to take what's there for you, the sure thing. Sometimes it's like, but Trayvon Walker was the athleticism. What about what ceiling could exist with that athleticism? Well, the fact that, you have to be a good enough player to unlock that ceiling and go to the next level is a big thing. And I think that too often people get sucked into the athleticism debate and they're like, but what could he be if he can reach that ceiling with this athleticism? But really, Aiden Hutchinson was the way to go.
Yeah. We probably should talk more about the game, but
good
definitely.
question.
We just had Halloween. If the Eagles and Jaguars were Halloween candy, what would they be? Good question. I don't know if I've ever thought about that. Well, they aren't. Neither would be the best candy, and I think Reese's is the best candy. So I would take that off the table.
Your rating.
What?
So that's your rating scale, Reese's, and then
Reese's
everything else.
Number
there.
one. The worst.
I know. When I walked when I was walking around with my son last night, every time you get all these chip bags, it's like, and so I feel like the Jaguars
do ramen noodle.
I feel like the Jaguars are a bag of chips because after a while you're just like, would you stop giving me bags?
Ramen noodles.
The ramen noodles.
The Eagles could be Sour Patch. I'm not a big Sour Patch Kids fan, but could the Eagles be Sour Patch Kids? Because you never know, like, is it going to be sweet? Is it going to be like anything? You can get anything out of a bag of Sour Patch Kids.
Crabby old man says Jags equal milk duds.
I'm not a big milk.
That's a good one. Yep.
I'm not a big milk. I like Reese's, Kit Kats. I'm a big York peppermint patty. I know people don't like them like mint chocolate chip type of stuff, but I'm into that. How was Halloween for you guys anyway?
It was good. It was like, well, okay, well, I'm going to say it in Celsius here, but it was 20 degrees up here, which is, I think, like 80-ish, 80.
Dude, it was 80 degrees yesterday, and I'm like, this is
probably
ridiculous.
The same as what you guys were getting. So it was great, so man. There was like, but so much fun when it's like, I think it was a little too warm, like knocked back a few degrees. And it would have been a bit better, but like it's way better than when it's like minus temperatures and you're just like, when can we stop going to homes and just go back home?
I want hoodie weather. Like I wear shorts all year round, so like that's not going to affect me. I want to be able to throw a hoodie on. That's what I want. Nestle Crunch is actually good candy too.
That's what he says. The Eagles D. It's a Nestle Crunch.
All right,
back to the game.
Got sidetracked a little bit. I think it's safe to say, on paper, the Eagles are a better team. Yep. Here we go. Here's the big question that's been going around all week. Who would you rather have as coach, Doug Pederson or Nick Sirianni?
I mean, because Doug Pederson's already been here, we know like he did good for the culture at the start, but then at the end of the day, he was staying too loyal to his people who weren't producing. Like we got stuck in a point where it's like Press Taylor and that offense was not producing. He wanted to keep Press Taylor around, knowing that the offense wasn't doing well. The whole situation with Carson Wentz, Darren Sproles came out on a podcast and was saying Carson Wentz didn't listen to coaching, didn't listen to coaches, didn't really want to do anything that they wanted him to do to get better or to work in that offense. So, I mean, ultimately, to me, Nick Sirianni for me. I think we had the same debate with Brian Daboll when the Giants came around, but I'm going with Nick Sirianni because we know, like, if you get that guy, like if you get this guy's blinders on and he's focused on what he needs to be focused on, he's good. We know he's good. We know he's a culture builder. The players respect him. The players play for him. He's a yes man. He's willing to do what he needs to do to keep his job and say, okay, bring in whoever you want on the staff and I'll work with them. I know what I'm here to do. And Doug Pederson doesn't know how to do that. He at the beginning, he might've been the yes man, but he's no longer, by the end of it, he was no longer the yes man and wasn't going to be pushed around by Jeffrey and Howie. Whereas Nick Sirianni, no, I mean, if he was protecting the right guys, he was not protecting good coordinators.
Yeah.
If you're pushing back because you had a fairly successful season and you think there's more to work with, okay, but Press Taylor has been a terrible offensive coordinator from the day he put a headset on. Like, you can't sit there and defend Like you can fire me every time but if I want Press Taylor. And that's like the bottom line. And like, fire me if I can't keep him. He's going to get fired every time. He's going to go down from the Jaguars in the same blaze of glory and take Press Taylor somewhere else too. I don't even think Doug Pederson gets another job, to be honest.
Does Nick Sirianni get another job if he gets fired?
I mean,
I don't know if he gets another head coaching job.
I don't know if he gets another head coaching job, but I mean, we've seen teams like the Dan Campbell situation where like literally they're culture builders, they're guys that gain the respect of players, and more teams seem to be going that way. I mean, I would go that way over a defensive coordinator. For the most part, defensive coordinators aren't usually ending up being successful head coaches. So, I mean, I think Nick Sirianni, like, if he gets fired with one of the best winning percentages in NFL history for a fired coach, I wouldn't be surprised if he got another job elsewhere.
Ryan says, most people who criticize Nick have never led anything in their life. No matter what your personality is, you have to lean into it. Fake never works. You hear the players say for him to be himself. And I've been saying this over, like, it felt like the first 4 weeks, Nick wasn't being himself. And like, we know he's outgoing. He likes to look into the camera, a mean mug, and he likes to celebrate. But the first 4 weeks, it didn't seem like he was doing that. And then after the bye, like, obviously Brandon Graham, Jalen Hurts, a lot of the guys have said, we've told Nick, we want the 2022 Nick back. We want that guy back, the guy that's himself, the guy that, and again, behind the scenes, this is the reason why this team plays for him. They love him. But like the Nick we see in the media is not the same Nick. And I definitely agree with what Ryan's saying. Fake doesn't work. And I'm glad that Nick isn't fake. I want Nick to be Nick, because Nick being who he is best for the team and best for him. So I have zero issue with that at all. So, as long as Nick doesn't change from who he is and who he is, we're not going to have any issues.
I agree.
Obviously, they have to win. Like, it's going to be, if the Eagles make the playoffs, that's 4 years, 4 playoff appearances. It will be really hard for the Eagles to potentially fire Nick Sirianni if they make another playoff run. Obviously, the big question is going to be he obviously hasn't been hired as a coach elsewhere, but like if Kellen Moore were to really get this Eagles offense going, and he were to potentially get hired elsewhere, like what do they do offensively from a scheme standpoint or from like a play calling standpoint? Because obviously, like, it's going to be another offensive coordinator for Jalen Hurts. And are we going to have to go through this whole thing again? But that's going to be a different story for a different day.
Yeah, because I think it's going to be important. Like, that'll be what ends up being the big question mark. Or do we risk losing Kellen Moore for the sake of keeping Nick Sirianni? And then it comes down to what Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman believe. What's better for us? To have the continuity on offense. I think it would be the first season that Jalen Hurts has the same offensive coordinator for a second year.
Well, he had Shane Steichen.
He had Shane Steichen, yeah. But, I mean, Shane Steichen wasn't 2 full seasons, right? It was just he took over. He took over more than he was the offensive coordinator more than halfway through for more than half of the season in 2021, and then was the offensive coordinator all of 2022. So I would say that's like then that begs to differ even more. Like, the only offense he was super successful in was the one where he got nearly 2 years of exposure to. There's nobody sits there and thinks like that, there isn't something there.
If Kellen Moore were to get hired elsewhere, Shane Steichen gets fired by Indianapolis. Bring him back.
We don't have enough hours in the show to get into the mess
that's going to be an offensive. That will be an off-season topic of discussion. All right. So before we get to our players of the game, keys to the game, and our predictions, we're going to do our unheralded player of the week for week 7, right? Week 8 was last week. Week 8 in the NFL. Sorry, I'm getting, because the Eagles have only played 7 games, so my head is kind of slow today. And obviously by unheralded, what do we mean? We don't want like the Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley's of the world. We want somebody that stepped up for his team, helped them get a win. I typically pick guys that won. Connor sometimes picks guys that lost. But
I've
Connor,
tried to stick to the winning ways. I've tried.
Do you have a unheralded player of the week?
I absolutely do. I'm picking this one because he was instrumental to the victory over the Cowboys and continuing to bury the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going with Isaac Guerrero, running back for the San Francisco 49ers. He went 14 carries for 85 yards and a touchdown, plus 3 receptions for 17 yards. That San Francisco offense is literally built for any running back. Any running back. You step in there and you're going for close to 100 yards. I mean, if you combine all-purpose yards, Guarnardo did go for over 100, but you can almost guarantee, Jordan Mason stepped in there and, he got hurt, and that's why Guarnardo had to step up. But, I mean, in theory, you're almost guaranteed 100 yards every single game in that offense as a running back. It's wild. They Jordan can just Mason's pick day 3 running back after day 3 running back and just roll them right in. Right in.
Jordan Mason is 3rd in the league in running behind Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley, and they haven't had Christian McCaffrey all year. No, but they also aren't winning many games right now, so we'll see. I'm going to go with a guy that caught the game-winning touchdown in an upset 29-24 win over the Ravens. Cedric Tillman finished with 7 catches, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns off the arm of Jameis Winston, who also could have been my unheralded player of the week. Could have a tag team there, Jameis Winston and Cedric Tillman. But a huge win for the for the Cleveland Browns in their first start post Deshaun Watson injury. And of course, they come out, beat the Ravens. The Ravens obviously are good offensively. That defense is leaking a little bit. And we'll see what happens in that division. But a division that could potentially get a little crazy going forward with Pittsburgh in first place, the Ravens in second, and then you have the Bengals and Browns trying to battle in that tough AFC North. All right, Connor. You went with Isaac Guerrero, and I went with Cedric Tillman. Now let's get to our offensive and defensive players of the game that we're looking at, and maybe a key or two, and then our predictions for Eagles, Jaguars.
Offensively, I mean, this defense is really bad all around. I think one of the focus areas is going to be continue to do what you do best. There's no need to get really fancy in this game. They rate their defense. The Jags ranked 29th in points allowed, 29th in yards allowed. They do a lot of it through the air, but if we're not forced to go to the air, they're a middle of the pack team as far as Russian defense goes too. So I think you can take full advantage of Saquon Barkley. You can even get Will Shipley involved. I think, if you get out 2 scores and you can keep the momentum and the pace rolling, roll out Will Shipley. This could be one of those games where Saquon Barkley gets a little bit of rest. But I think stick to what's been working. Don't get fancy. This isn't a game where you have to get fancy. You just have to do what's worked for the last 3 weeks for you offensively. Continue to, get Jalen Hurts under center, working with the play action, the things that are working, because the more comfortable he gets, hopefully the better and better we continue to get down the stretch and head towards the playoffs. We want him to be as comfortable as possible in doing what is actually working in the offense so we can win those big games when it counts. From a player perspective in this game, offensively, I think I'm going to go with Grant Calcaterra in this. I think that Grant Calcaterra, Dallas Goedert's going to be out again. Grant Calcaterra has been good, doing a great job stepping in for him. I don't think this necessarily has to be a big game for A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, really for anybody offensively. But obviously, you got to get out, get the lead, get the early lead. I think we get a first quarter point this time around. I know last week, whatever it was, we scored on our first drive technically, but not in the first quarter. But I think Greg Calcaterra can have a really good game. I think this is where you can really work the middle of the field and take advantage of a really bad Jaguars passing offense. So I'm going Grant Calcaterra as my player to watch in this game in offense. Defensively, get after Trevor Lawrence. We know Trevor Lawrence is not that good. He just so happened to land in a time where the Jaguars had to make a snap decision of extending him while they had the chance to extend him before maybe the market got a lot richer. And they did. Could be Press Taylor's fault. Could be, I'm not going to go too crazy on that one. But I think that, get pressure. This, like, if Ezra Cleveland's banged up, the interior of the offensive line's good, not great. The offensive line in general is meh, not great. Something you can take advantage of. So I think this can be like, I'm going Milton Williams on this one. I'm going to go with Milton Williams. I've gone with Jalen Carter a couple times. I think Jalen Carter can have a good game, but I think Jalen Carter can command the attention. So Milton Williams can finally have his game because he hasn't really had a game this year. So it'd be really nice to see Milton Williams get that game. But I do think there's going to be a decent amount of continued pressure from this defensive line this week. And, 4-5 sacks total. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly. So I mean, continue to do. I really want to say Kenyon Mitchell and that he's going to get his first pick, but I'm not going to do it because I feel like we've overused it, and I just want to celebrate the pick, that first pick, with pride and be like, I've been waiting for this. So I'm going Milton Williams.
Offensively, I'm going to go Fred Johnson. He's going to be lining up against Trayvon Walker. He's going to be lining up against Josh Hines-Allen, and obviously, with him starting for the injured Jordan Mailata, he's gonna have to continue to protect and run. He's obviously a better run blocker than he is pass blocker, which a lot of offensive linemen are. They like to go forward, they don't like to go backwards. And obviously, the big key for the Eagles on this 3-game winning streak: who's the only team in the NFL that didn't turn the ball over in the month of October? The Philadelphia Eagles. We're the only team in the NFL not to turn the ball over in the month of October, so they have to continue that. So I'm going to be keying in on Fred Johnson. We'll see if he is given help, and if the Eagles cannot turn the ball over, they should be able to move the ball with ease against this Jacksonville defense. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go to Kobe Dean. Like, he's been – I love when Nakobe Dean's coming downhill. Like, man, he put some hits on the running backs and screens last week, and he's just really good, like, coming downfield. Obviously, he has his – struggles when it comes to covering, whether it's a tight end or a running back. That's not his strength. But I love to see Nakobe Dean go out there and just have himself another whale of a game. Like, give me some 10 to 15 tackles, maybe get a sack or two, and then just be all over the field, sideline to sideline, showing us the guy that we thought we were getting in the third round, the guy that we saw at Georgia when he was at college. And I say it all the time. Like, he's like almost like we talk about how Sidney Brown and Reed Blankenship are heat-seeking missiles when it comes to that. He's that from the linebacker position, coming downhill, hitting the hole, blitzing. Like, you don't want anybody but Nakobe Dean doing that. So like, unleash Nakobe Dean, get after Trevor Lawrence, Tank Bigsby in the backfield, and try to get some sacks and force a turnover or two. I was going to go Isaiah Rodgers, just his first start in a couple of years. I think he's bound, obviously potentially not going up against top-notch receivers. Obviously, Davis and Thomas are questionable, and we know there's going to be no Christian Kirk. So it'd be interesting to see who is going to be, out there at receiver for the Jaguars. I mean, Evan Ingram is also going to be playing, and he's no slouch at tight end too. So that could be a big battle for either Zach Bond or Nakobe Dean. So I'm going to go Dean and Fred Johnson.
Yeah, I think that a few different guys may end up with some pretty nice stat lines defensively coming out of this game. So, prediction time?
Prediction time. Go ahead.
I mean, I'm going with the on paper feeling. I think this is going to be an Eagles dominant game. I don't think they're looking past the Jags. I don't think they're looking past anyone right now. They know this game's important to line up the next two being even more vitally important in this season, as we spoke about in prior weeks. I'm going with 31 to, I don't even know what to give the Jags. I think 31-17.
Eagles?
They'll get a bit for the Eagles. Jags will get a bit of garbage time stuff going, I think.
So if you remember the last time the Eagles and Jaguars faced, which was 4 or 6 years ago, whenever it was, actually, was it 2 years ago? Whenever it was, the Jaguars jumped out to a 14-0 lead in Philly, and it was pouring rain that day. But the Eagles were able to come. It was obviously, the Jags came to play for Doug. It was his first time back. I do think that it's going to be back and forth early on. But I think in the end, the Eagles are going to kind of run away in the second half like they did last week. And I have the Eagles winning 31-14. So we both have the Eagles putting up 31 points. And the way that this offense has been rocking, it wouldn't shock me because obviously the Jaguars aren't that great of a team right now. So the Eagles have to take advantage of it. And do not look past Jacksonville to Dallas. You cannot afford to do that because if you do that, you'll lose. Obviously, the Eagles are receiving a lot of praise right now. 3-game winning streak. What is it that Sirianni said this week? Praises like perfume. Sniff it, smell it, but don't drink it or something like that. Whatever he said.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, so don't, enjoy it, but also take this stuff serious. Don't look at the press clippings. Don't, smell yourselves and get ready to battle for 60 minutes against a team that is going to want to come in here and upset you and get a coach or get a win for Doug Pederson, who could potentially be coaching for his job.
Absolutely.
All righty. Well, we appreciate everybody for tuning in live to the Kelly Green Hours as the Eagles are set to do battle for their third legit home game. Like, think about that. This is their third legit home game, and we're going into November. The Eagles have a lot of home games coming up and could potentially set themselves up well for a potential number one seed in the NFC if they continue to handle business. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHorrell54. And follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, anywhere you get your podcast at Eagles Pin Pool. And thank you all for the comments in the chat. Like, do not. We talked more about some of your questions than we did the game, and we do apologize for that. But we enjoy all the back and forth. For Connor, I'm LJ. Thank you all for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.